You're listening to the Motivated Mindset podcast with Bobby Stein.
This is Max Stevens, and you're on the Motivated Mindset podcast with Bobby Stein.
Indeed.
And I have to grab the wheel and steer the ship and bring the positivity in. Look, positivity is a choice. Love is a choice, right? And again, it's just, do you want to do it or not? If you're tired of your shit, then start doing different stuff. It's really not that hard. It just seems hard, right? But we're just conditioned, and we're a byproduct of what we do or don't do.
Hello, my name is Bobby Stein, your host of the Motivated Mindset podcast, where I share candid conversations with extraordinary folks from all walks of life to discover just what motivates their mindset. Welcome in, and thanks for listening. Hello and welcome into another episode of the Motivated Mindset podcast, and I trust that wherever you are watching or listening that you're doing absolutely terrific. And today, I've got a fellow to chat with who I've known for a few years now. He's first and foremost, the way I know him, he's a bodybuilder, but I've come to learn that he's also kind of like a thought leader. And he resides here in Bonita Springs, Florida. He attends and belongs to the gym that I go to. And it's always an interesting conversation to be had when we're on a treadmill walking side by side. And I thought, let's get him on for a chat. He's thoughtful, he's articulate, and he brings the brains along with the brawn. So let's see and learn what all motivates the mindset of my friend, Max Prime Stevens. Thanks for tuning in and welcome in. Max, how are you, my brother?
I'm good, man. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. A busy day for you, busy week?
Yeah, it's moving along. So I just finished up the gym and ran here to get on here. So the day is always good when you make it to the gym, man.
Yeah, for sure. So your day is kind of, now you work by schedule with clients all day, I'm assuming. What is that spread out? Are you
kind of
fortunate?
like in blocks. So depending on where the roster's at, typically I'll start at 6 or 6:30, run that until like anywhere between 8 and 10, and then come back for another block around like 11 or 12, run that until 2 or so, and then come back in around 3:34. Sometimes run that till 7 and 8. And that's like if I'm full throttle. So if not, sometimes it's lighter, so it'll be like in 2-3 hour blocks. Sometimes they go up to 4, maybe 5, depending on where the roster's at for that moment in time.
Do you find it ebbs and flows with the seasonal snowbirds down here?
Not seasonal. I'm not a seasonal guy. I'm fortunate to where I have like people here year round. I have one seasonal client, but that's really inconsequential to my schedule, which I like because I would hate to be busy for a season and then be twiddling my thumbs. I like consistency. I'm a routine guy, so it's nice to have kind of the same thing, what to expect, and then you can kind of map your day out around that.
Yeah, it makes good sense. Do you fly solo or do you have a team under you? How's that work?
Nope, all me, man. Just me, myself, and I.
So you can definitely, get pissed off at yourself when you're not doing the job right.
Yeah, that doesn't happen, man. One thing I'm good at is always delivering, services rendered. So, I believe in that. Like I'm fortunate where all of my clients at this point in my business are great people. We become friends, but I never forget that like it's always business on the floor. So even if we're talking in between, I'm making sure they're getting on their sets. We can chit chat in between, but there's a time to converse and there's a time to work, and work is always coming first before the chit chat. So, we make sure we get the job done every time we're in it. So
yeah, and I'm sure your clients do appreciate that. I know a lot of times clients, they're not that so much that they're lonely, but they may lack for some companionship. So they'll come alongside of a trainer, and it's really like the trainer's not, like you say, in between sets or whatever you're chit chatting, but it's you're making sure that that they're there where the rubber hits the road, that you're going to produce a result. That's why they brought you on board, and you're going to deliver.
Well, different strokes for different folks, right? I mean, I'm not the chit-chatty kind of guy. I'm not saying I can't hold a conversation, but if you see me in the gym, I'm putting in work, and if you see my clients, they're putting in work. They train properly, they train hard. So, if somebody does want a friend for hire, not saying I won't become your friend, but you're going to earn that through busting your ass, I'm not here for friends, and I don't say that in a nasty way, but for myself or anyone else, man, we're here to get the job done, right? So my whole thing is, when people come to me, they pretty much want to do something for themselves, and then I'm the facilitator. So it's a teamwork thing. I always say people pay me not to think. Most people that come to me are telling everybody what to do throughout their day. So when they
Yeah.
come to me, I'm the one part of their day for an hour where they get told what to do. They don't have to think, right? They're getting a goal done or hitting a target for that day, and then they're back on to the rat race of a day. So, what I do is a little different. How I operate's a little different, and not taking away from anyone else, to each their own, but, very much so, like, the gym, we're there to work, so not saying we
Yeah.
can't have fun, but, when people come to me, they're there to learn. They're eager. They're hungry. And I'm grateful for that, because I don't care what level you're at. It could be a lifestyle coach. It could be an amateur bodybuilder. It could be a pro bodybuilder. It could be a pro athlete. I've worked with everybody. And, the only thing I require is just an eagerness to learn and wanting to push yourself, and that it has to be taught, because one thing a lot of people don't talk about is establishing a pain threshold and pushing that in training. Because, like, we get a pain signal, we think the set's done. Well, not necessarily, right? Just because it hurts doesn't mean things slow down. We're not losing mechanical tension. We're not, nearing failure. So the pain is just the start of the set. We got to endure that good signal, right? Good pain, push through that, and really get to true failure or fatigue. So that's one thing I'm really good at, is just being able to connect dots for people. When somebody understands what they're doing, right? Normally they can digest it better. They're actually more excited to do it because they have a dot connected. It's hard to do something and kind of follow blindly. Well, maybe not in today's world, right? But in my mind, and most pragmatic people, you want to understand what you're doing and why. And when I understand what I'm doing and why, now I'm more likely to do that and adhere to it and be consistent with it, right? Because now I have a drawn out path.
Yep.
A goes to B, and it's realistic. And that's the thing, right? When you coach people, because not only am I a personal trainer, I'm also a coach. I do lifestyle bodybuilding clients, their diet, training programs, all that. A good coach manages expectations, right? Because some people can have all the potential in the world, but that has nothing to do with where they're at right now, right? So we can look here, but if we're here, we have to work here, right? If we're ever even on a tap here, it starts here and stepping towards the potential. So I think that's the thing, right? Is being able to stay true to yourself, stay true to your morals and what you know, and not let others kind of pressure you into what they want on their timeline. It doesn't work that way, right? And educating them, like, hey, how much time have you not been doing things for? A long time, right? We're not going to try hard for a month or two and reach the physique of your goal. It just, the scale doesn't tilt that way, right?
That's a great perspective too, because I always envision it like this, Max. If I'm coming down a hill, or if an individual is driving a car down a steep incline, right, and they apply the brakes, they don't stop immediately, right? There's that gradual scenario until they hit the fulcrum or the bottom before they can get right to ship again. So yeah, I like the way you attack it. You're color by numbers, holding them accountable, as well as the going through the pain threshold. You're right. I think the real muscle fiber breakdown, and when the work begins, is at the point of fatigue. Okay, let's get through and endure. And then when we rest and recuperate, we're going to see results accordingly as the weeks progress and unfold, correct?
Yeah. And I mean, you said I'm a thinker, so it's kind of a universal principle, right? Like, if we go beyond that physical part, right? The mental, the emotional, the spiritual, it's painful. It's messy, right? It could be a freaking hurricane, man. And a lot of times we don't want to walk into it because it's painful. It doesn't feel good. It's not the savory feelings, right? But
Right.
on the other side of that, if we go through it with the right attitude and perspective, right, we find all the good stuff. So, the gym is great because it's so much more mental and spiritual, for me at least, and I think it should be for everybody. And I learned that back when I did MMA and boxing. It was always, the game is 80% mental. Even though you're getting hit in the face and guys are trying to take you down, you're trying to take them down, all that, it's not physical. As much as it's one of the most physical things you can do. It's not physical. It's 80% mental, if not more. And the same goes in the gym, right? It's our energy follows attention. We're a byproduct of our thoughts. So if I have a checklist, right, and we'll bring it back and we'll connect all these dots. If I have a checklist of a leg extension, okay, I got to brace in, I got to keep my butt planted back, I got to keep tension and keep my knees straight, my core tight. I have a tempo, right? I have to accelerate, decelerate, pause, squeeze, breathe. I have all these things. But pain is not on my checklist, okay? So I have all these things I'm focusing on. I can't focus on the pain. I'm trying to get the failure. I'm not going to reach it if all of a sudden I get this thing not on my checklist, this outside little gnat telling me, oh my God, it hurts, you're done. No, I'm not done, right? And that is, again, it translates to life, right? We have these things happen to us and we're like, oh my God, this is unbearable. No, it's not unbearable. It's your attitude and perception. You're focusing on all the wrong things, right? So if I keep my mind in the right spot and I become what I call the eye of the storm, I learn to embrace the chaos, right? And I'm not caught up in it. I'm probably going to do some pretty great things and I'm going to go way beyond what I ever thought I could. So yeah, just a little side skirt, wrap around, all that good stuff.
No, it's great. I just recently, I've known this, but it came to my attention, Max, that the bison, right, when a storm is coming across the plains, they turn face and go into the storm. And it's
Mm-hmm.
thought scientifically the reason they do that is so they can get to the other side faster. Like you
Yeah.
said, the eye of the storm, right? Whereby a cow, on the other hand, he'll turn and retreat and he'll lay
Yeah.
in the pasture and get the snot beat out of him by the storm. So, loving your perspective. Yeah, I think when you say 80-20, that's synonymous throughout everything in life. Definitely in athletics, MMA, you're getting smacked around. It's tough to even keep your wits about you. But the mental game, in my estimation, it's everything, right? We become what we think about most
Mm-hmm.
of the time. We're the sum total of our thoughts to this point in time. And if we,
100%.
and I'm enamored with that philosophy and that way of thinking, and it stands true with relationships, personal, business, however you want to apply it. The 80-20 rule, putting the weight on the 80% mental. If you can get your
Yeah.
arms around that and your head around it, you're going to be in a far better position. Don't you
Well,
agree?
there's that saying that whether you can or whether you think you can or can't, you're right.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Henry
I
Ford.
think
Yep.
people forget, right? The people we see that we would consider extraordinary, and we talked about this on the treadmill the other day, they just do the ordinary extra, man. And, I think people don't
Ordinary extra. I like
understand
that.
just how truly powerful we all are. Like, we're unique in our own ways, but I wouldn't say anyone is extra special. We all have our own uniqueness. We all have our own little special prowess, right? But what do we refine within ourselves? We have all these tools. And again, if we're not watering them, if we're not utilizing them, if we're not tapping into them, if we're not growing and all these things we're meant to do, well, then we're stagnant or we're just regressing and then we'll never be great, right? And greatness, again, for me, can be many things. It's not necessarily milestones on, winning titles and, earning X amount of money. And sure, those are great. Don't be wrong. Those are great. I'm competitive. I want to dominate. I don't want to win. I want to win 100-0. That's just how it is. And those are great, right? But outside of that, who you are as a person, when you think of what constitutes a good life, right? Or a perfect life, you start to get into trying to walk a path of excellence. And I think that goes into tapping into a higher thought frequency. You're going against the grain. And a buddy of mine said something that I really love and I use it all the time. The high road has no traffic. That's profound, man.
Rarefied air. Rarefied air. Absolutely.
Most people in today's world want the perfect conditions. Everything's optimal. Oh, I woke up and my Apple Watch told me I didn't sleep well. What do you need a watch
What
tell
the hell?
whether I woke up if I didn't sleep good or not? I still have stuff to do. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so I find we become stagnant or kind of almost shoot ourselves in the foot with this thought of like perfect conditions. And I'm not saying don't try to line all your ducks up, but the ecosystem is going to run. You know what I mean? You can't baby it. And sometimes you just got to show up, man. Showing up is it, right? If you just show up and you put in an effort and you're coming in dialed in and you're not making excuses because you didn't sleep well or whatever, the barometric pressure in Australia, you know what I mean? Like, you just show up and you just put the work in and there's no excuses and you're realistic with where you're at and you're mastering your craft, your skill set. And again, it translates, right? This could be mentally, emotionally, all that stuff, right? No matter what it is. If I show up and I'm accountable and I'm putting in an effort to be better than yesterday and I do that over time, I'm undoubtedly going to level up.
Well,
right?
it's compound. It's like compound interest on your money. I've heard a thing, Max, and I think you can relate. Right? It says that the horse that wins first place and 10 times the prize money isn't 10 times faster than the second place horse. He might be a nose faster,
Hmm.
just a nose. And that makes all the difference. He stands out by contrast. And if we're taking and sleeping on our gifts, in my estimation, and we're not giving it our all, and for everybody it's different, right? It took me a minute to wake up to this fact. But if we're not giving it our all, we only get out of things what we put into things. I know you're a believer and a proponent of that thought, or that philosophy rather. And I'd really like to see, folks that are yearning for the better life, whether across whatever strategy that they're attacking, whether it's life and business, their relationships, their finances. If they would just really lean into to what's given to them, the God-given gifts and talents, and exercise them, they're going to experience so much more. And I love how you say it. If you do it day to day, week, month, year, the next thing you know, you've lived a wonderful life. It's compounded as accordingly. No?
100%, man. I think if people embraced being comfortable when it's uncomfortable, right? And actually stop having the glass half full syndrome. Man, if you're scared, right, of pain, suffering, adversity, trials, failure, all the things, right? If you're scared of that, you're never going to fully feel happiness. You're never going to fully feel joy. You're never going to fully feel success. You're never fully going to feel love. It's just the principle of inverses. So there's a level of submission where I submit to the pain, the unsavory things, the so-called negative, right? I submit to those and I embrace them and I thrive in them. Then on the other side of that, I get all these great things. But I think people just don't want to suffer enough. They don't want to endure enough. And it's not that they can't. It's their attitude. They're looking through the wrong lens, and they're limiting themselves. Because again, we all can do this. I got a funny story for you. So I was 16 years old, and I wanted to see my tricep. So I'm sitting on the tricep and I'm banging out single arm triceps to failure, started at 20 each arm, and I do 10 minutes, right? I wasn't leaving this thing until I saw a tricep. That's how I'm a mule at this point. You're not telling me anything. I'm not budging, right? Get to about 15 minutes and hate to break it to you, but no tricep appeared, right? And I had this epiphany, and this little voice in my head said, hey, you're not going to see a tricep today. You might not see a tricep in a month or 6 months, but if you show up with this intention and you work at this level every time, you will see a tricep, right? And that's the thing. People want this timeline, right? Oh, how many months? How many years? Success has no timeline. Everyone's timeline of success is different. There's some of the richest people in the world that didn't hit it until they were 55 or 60, right? I know people that are financially stable, have financial freedom, do whatever they want, you know what I mean, under the sun, and things most people only dream of doing. And they didn't get breathing room until they were 45. You know what I mean? And you got people in their 20s and 30s just thinking, I don't know what, but it's like, man, you got to look at the long game. And that's what I've always been able to do is I've understood, okay, I might not be the best or the greatest today, but if I come in with the attitude of I want to be the best, I want to be the greatest, and I train with ferocity and relentlessness, and I'm tenacious in my approach, and there's no excuses, eventually that's going to put me from the large stack to the small stack. It's inevitable. You know what I mean? You cannot be denied. And one of my favorite sayings is live in your own greatness and let the rest of the world catch up. You know what I mean? It's
Great
just that
quote. Great
simple.
quote.
It's just that simple, right? But again, there's all these things like we talk about, right? We have our shadow self, we have our ego, we have all these things that don't want us to pull into our authentic self. Yeah. And who am I to be great? Or, no, I could never do that. And then you might have family and friends, loved ones that just, oh no, you can't, you've never done that, and again, one thing I've told plenty of people, nobody can tell you about you except you. You don't need everybody in your corner. You just need you in your corner. If you believe in yourself, nobody's going to put the food in your mouth or show up and put the time in it in your business or, to the reps in the gym, nobody's going to do that for you except you, right? So whether you can or can't, again, you're right. Okay. So it doesn't matter who says what, it matters what you say to yourself. And I'm not saying it's always, hey, I can do this. Plenty of times in my journey, I felt like, man, I don't know if I can do this. And it pisses me off. It makes me show up even more and harder. I'm spiteful like that, man, when it comes to that stuff. I just do not like the self-doubt, negative stuff. I'll show up out of spite at that point, like, oh hell no, we are
just
not
just
doing this. Just
because.
because, So I think if people had that approach, right, and just were aggressive and assertive in the right way, we'd see a lot more great things, and we'd have a lot more of a higher frequency, emotionally, spiritually. We'd have conversations that were just more of
That
substance.
were meaningful. And by the way, I am talking rather, and Mac with Max Stevens, and you can find Max over on the Instagram platform. You can follow him at Max Prime Stevens. He is shot out of a cannon. But anyway, get over to Instagram, check him out, and you'll see some really cool things. We're going to talk about a little bit, I'm sure, transformation and stuff, and from a physical aspect. And he's giving you the bedrock ground floor foundation as to what that's based upon, and that's the mental, spiritual aspect of it. But get over to Instagram, give him a follow. You'll be glad you did. You see some stuff where he transforms from off season and then right down, dialed in, peeled to a shred to step on stage and just dominate, because that attitude and mindset that he carries into his sport and his passion, his coaching, and his life it's for real, folks. It is authentic. Give him a follow. You'll be glad you did. Max, when you were talking earlier about the age thing and having people that get some breathing room, and they didn't really achieve that until age 45. Well, what is super encouraging, I look at it just fundamentally, you look at like Colonel Sanders, right? This guy didn't fully land on his feet until he sold his recipe for Kentucky Fried Chicken at age like 67.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never too late. And that's encouraging for me because I'm in the fourth quarter of life of a football game, right? I'm 62 years old. And that means that, there's still bandwidth there and I can achieve it. What do you tell people that are, they feel like they've hit the wall and that they're limited in their beliefs and their thinking? How do you encourage them?
I mean, it depends because it's so situational, right? So I never like to answer things black and white, because it's just, we're all so similar, but it's like the bones are there, right? The outline's there, but there's different components, and that's where our individuality comes in. But I guess if I kind of had to summarize, right, it would depend on where that person's coming from. Why do they feel that way? And I think this is a big thing. Why? Not enough people ask why. I always ask why. And people kind of get mad at me because I'll be like, why? And like they don't know why. So they're mad at me. Like, why are you mad at me? You don't know your stuff. But why is important. Context matters, right? The devil's in the details. So what I think your why is might not be your why. And if I give you advice from a misconception and we're not on the same page or misperception, then it's not really effective. So I think, the better approach to kind of how I would go about this is I would ask that person, well, why do you feel that way? Try to understand them, right? And I think the biggest thing is I've been through a lot of life. Like, I'm only 35. I know I'm young. I feel like I'm 16 sometimes. But the thing is life's come and taken a bite out of me several times. It hasn't been easy. Advice without experience isn't worth much because you're speaking hypothetically, and until you've experienced something in a similar realm, it's hard to say how you really would act. Because sure, in theory, this all sounds great, but then it happens to you, an emotion, right? Maybe trauma triggers, things could happen and we might completely act differently. So, first off, I would have had to have had some experience on how this person is feeling and be in that wheelhouse to fully tell them what I would do. If not, I could maybe try to guide their thoughts, but I'm not really going to tell them what I would do because it's not worth much, right? It's an opinion. Opinion without experience is not worth anything in my book. So like I said, I would try to understand their why, and hopefully I've experienced something similar or can relate to the feeling or have felt it, right? And then, you just try to point them in the right direction, man. But again, it all starts with your thought. Why are you feeling that way? And, is it based in reality, or is this just old dirty laundry you never cleared out? I was just talking with a buddy of mine because he felt a certain way. Actually, this morning, one of my best friends, and he was like, dude, I'm so glad you called me, man. I'm feeling down and this and that. And I said, well, why? And he had some things happen in life where he made some choices, and he did his thing for it. He had to. It took a little bit out of him, but now he's better than ever. Present dad, great guy, awesome guy. Wouldn't think, no, not one bad thought about the guy, and even from where he's come from. And I met him after the fact, but the point is, I said, dude, none of that is relevant to now. I said, you're not anything like that. It made you who you are today. So you can't look at it with regret and shame, because how are you to say you would have been who you are today if you didn't experience that? The principle of inverses, like we're talking about, and he's like, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, it just sounds like you're not pouring into your cup at all. You're doing all these things, but there's no you time. And you need that. I'm like, it's great you're present in all these things, but you're going to get burnt out. You need to take the time for yourself to fill your cup up a little bit, or else you're always going to feel this like you're empty, And it's not to say what you're doing isn't fulfilling, but I think we all need to recharge, right? Like, we can't take care of someone else if we can't first and foremost take care of ourselves. And that's not selfish. That's not selfish. That's self-preservation, right? So whatever that is for you to feel good and recharge, you need to do that a few times a week, non-negotiable. And it's okay to say no sometimes, because you need that for yourself. And that doesn't mean you're absent. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. That just means no, especially if you're doing it more times than not, So I guess to give a real life example, right? I was like, hey man, you're looking at this the wrong way. You're looking at this from a point of like regret and shame, and there's nothing to feel bad about that. Like, did you make some bad choices? Sure. Was it not your best moment? Absolutely. But is it anything to do with you today? Absolutely not. So what are we feeling bad about?
And what was the outcome of the conversation? Did he leave the uplifted?
Yeah, he felt better. And he's like, you know what, right? You're man. You know what, man? You're right. Like, I have to, kind of figure out my thing to, do better this and that. And I was like, dude, like, you haven't been eating quality food. So lack of nutrition is going to have you feeling crummy. You stop training. You know what I mean? Like and I get it. You just had a kid. Like, you're excited. You weren't there for your kids when they were younger. You're getting another chance at this. But yeah, so, I just kind of gave him a little open, like real talk, and like, you need to start doing these things for yourself again. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to do that. And he's like, you're so right, man. And he felt better, and again, now knowing isn't the hard part. Daily application is hard. And such is the case. And most people know, you know what I mean? You want to do better. You want to feel better. You want to be better. You know what to do, but there's plenty of excuses why we can't do them or why we won't do them. Probably about a million excuses and 10 reasons why we should. It's easier to pull an excuse out of your ass than to hold on to a reason you should.
And you know what? And you know what, Max? Folks will you'll be justified in that. People will definitely be behind you. That's right. It was a shitty situation, or it wasn't, and they'll justify it, making it all the more important, right? But those 10 reasons, and that's the true separator. I truly believe that. If we go along with the flow and along with the people, it harkens back to the statement that your friend said that, that high path, there's no traffic on it. Yeah. You get down, and in fact, if the masses are chanting and preaching one thing, chances are you should do the opposite, or at least consider it. No.
And, look, man, like I mentioned, before, is life will come and take a bite out of you. Absolutely.
Yes.
You didn't ask for it. It's unpredicted. Okay, it's a shitty situation. We're dealt a shitty hand. But how you play it is all on you. You better play that shitty hand to the best of your capability, or else you're victimizing yourself. You know what I mean? So that's the whole thing, right? It goes back to the attitude and outlook and saying, hey, even if this is a bust, I'm going to play it like I'm flush, and I'm going to turn a negative to a positive, because there's always a silver lining. There's always a silver lining. And sometimes we might not see it right away. But if we approach it with the right attitude, if we go head into the storm, right, instead of trying to run from it, normally it's going to work out in our favor, And again, we can't.
What's that saying? It says the little girl goes into her bedroom on Christmas morning and the room's full of horse crap. And she says, with all this horse crap, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's all about attitude, man.
Yeah. So that's the thing, I think it just goes back to our thoughts shape our reality, right? So it comes down to either why me or try me. You know what I mean? I'm either a victor or a victim. And, again, I want to be victorious. So I don't know how to lose.
What do you, it's so easy to be, and I think that's why it is, right? It's almost by default. We can blame, we can point the finger, we can become a victim. But it's so, it's that million reasons versus the 10 reasons, right?
Yeah.
What do you say to, and is it something that is conscious that folks fall into that victimhood, or is it something that's beneath the surface subconsciously? Is it programming from what they've watched, viewed,
Yeah.
fed their head with? What is it?
I think it's kind of lies beneath the surface more so. And also it could be a lack of accountability or emotional maturity, because there does take a level of emotional maturity and awareness to look at things with grace, right? And that's something not a lot of people talk about. But I think it's so important to not only lead with grace, but pray for it, man. Like, grace is some of the most profound stuff we can have. And in that grace, we find the blessings, man. So first off, coming from a state of grace, right, and being present, that goes a far way. But how many of us are truly there, especially in today's world, right? We got 95,000 things distracting us, and everything is, got obtained in our hand in 10 seconds, right? And we wanted it yesterday. I think there's a lot to be said with that. And it leads to this unrealistic expectation that, again, things are just easily solved or fixed, right? Or like, hey, it shouldn't be this hard. Because that's what kind of the motto is. So it's all this subconscious programming, like you said, right? Is, you know, become a millionaire overnight. I did this, and nobody's hitting home runs like that. Look, I know plenty of successful people. I maybe know one out of all of them that hit a home run. The rest of them paid their dues for over 20 years, and it's really that. So, I think, again, like I said, I think it's a bit subconscious. I think it's lack of awareness, unrealistic expectations. And again, expectations lead to letdowns. Like you said, if I can flow, right, I'm adapting, I can keep motion. Okay. If I start expecting things and things don't go to my expectations, now I'm disappointed. Now I have a negative connotation. Now there's excuses. Now there's blame shifting. There's all these things, right? And it's a snowball. It's a slippery slope. So I think the best thing, kind of like what you said, man, is if I can be in a flow state, and it doesn't matter what my attitude is, I'm going to make it great, right? I can turn shit into Shylock. You know what I mean? If that's your attitude, right? I think it'll go a far way. And, we keep coming back to it, man. It's our attitude and our perspective. It really is, and it doesn't matter what anyone else tells you. Doesn't matter what you're watching on the TV or what you're picking up through your phone. Like, a lot of it just doesn't make sense, So I think if people took a little more of a critical thought approach and like, wait a minute, that doesn't really sound right or realistic, they'd probably be a little more based in reality, and then things would seem a lot more doable for them, because nowadays everybody's got this life of lavish, and they're this expert and they're that expert, and they got, 70,000 zeros in their bank account and blah, 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 and it's
but I think it's a false perception, and it's a facade.
Mm-hmm. They're trying to sell you. It's a facade for sure, man. It's look at me and what I did. I'm going to teach you how to do this. Buy my plan. So they're making their money off of the vulnerable. And instead of people looking inward at like, hey, what do I like? What excites me, right? What drives passion and desire within me? What am I good at? Instead of looking there inward, because that's where all your answers lie, they're looking outward for someone else to tell them. And at that
externally.
At that point, you're just being foolish.
And well, you know what it is for my money, Max? Success is an inside job.
Yeah.
Right? It really is. And I like what you just said about you got to know what you want. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? Look inside and find the answers. A lot to be said about grace and the blessings. I also, to tie it to that, a couple things: gratitude, thankfulness, forgiveness. I think a lot of folks become victims because they won't forgive themselves. And to me, forgiveness means abandoning, letting go, just releasing it. And you know what? It is what it is. It was what it was. It doesn't define, just like your friend, right? So he had a hiccup, right, in his past, but that didn't define him. He went out, he paid his penance, he did his dues, he's living present, he has a child, and, it took you to give him a little bit of a tune-up regarding his dietary things and his gym, some just fundamental stuff to say, hey, listen, this will help your headspace. But, man, grace is huge, having gratitude. When you get back into all these highlight reels and everything that's so prevalent on Instagram, people don't, you're right, they're trying to sell you something, but let's assume they're genuine and authentic. You don't see the stuff that they went through to get to that. You're seeing the
No.
finished product. You're seeing the Rolls Royce and the private jet. Half the time those things are rented. You know what I mean? To take the pictures so that you can, buy into their program. Yeah, it's an inside job. The subconscious mind, Max, I know you're a student. You're a young man, but damn, you're wise beyond your years. The subconscious mind, that fully, when programmed properly, give me the advantages of getting next to and befriending and feeding your subconscious mind with the intentional outcomes.
Well,
that you
I
want to
mean,
see
at the end of the day, right? Kind of like you reap what you sow, So if you line things up, you put them in alignment, right? And I'm watering the right things and they're taking root. And here's the thing. One of my favorite quotes is from Aristotle. It's the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it. Dude, it's unrealistic to think we're never going to have a bad feeling, a bad thought, a moment of doubt, whatever, okay? Now, whether I accept that or not, that's a whole nother thing, right? So I think understanding that and saying, hey, I know myself, I know my worth, I know where I want to be. I know where I want to go. I know what I want to grow into. Knowing those things, okay, now I have an idea. What brings my idea to fruition? Daily work, right? Consistency, showing up over time, stacking up the daily wins, checking daily boxes. So when you take that approach, right, and all of a sudden, like, I'm doing this, I'm living this, I'm building the life, I'm building into the life or the person I want to be. That's pretty freaking motivating, dude. I don't know what more you would need. And, again, but motivation is fleeting. So I think if people relied on commitment to their process, commitment sees the job through. Motivation, sure, it's great when you're high. But again, whether I have a flush or a bust hand, it doesn't matter. I'm showing up. Okay. I think if you have that no nonsense, non-negotiable attitude, right? I'm showing up whatever. If I'm on cloud nine, great. If I'm at rock bottom, great. It doesn't matter. I'm showing up. I'm consistent. Again, man, it's just a matter of time, and it's running the marathon, right? Everybody wants the sprint. They're sprinting out of the gate, and it's not sustainable. And that's a big thing I teach people, man, is that's my favorite thing to teach them. Sustainability. I can do this repetitively over time. Now I'm going to get somewhere versus like, yeah, okay, I can run you raw, man. I could crash diet you, have your cardio at an ungodly amount, and do all this crap that isn't sustainable. You didn't learn anything. Sure, we got there, but you have no clue how to hold it. You didn't build it, right? If you teach someone how to build something, well, now we have a blueprint. Now we're learning things. We're refining our tools. But if I just, again, if I skip the corners and I do something that isn't sustainable, well, then I'm not learning. I'm not appreciating what I built. And at the end of the day, I'm probably not going to sustain it either.
I think what you said is spot on so many fronts. I love the, I think one of the things that Bob Proctor talks about the teachers of old, all your Stoics here, your Aristotle, Socrates, Plato's, all these people, even up to Abraham Lincoln, right? These were all, wise minds and everything. And they may have disagreed on one or many things, but the one thing that they all agreed on was the fact that we become what we think about. Our thoughts are things. And man, I'll tell you, to really get out of that victimhood and that, get yourself a blueprint. Compound your interest, bet on yourself, invest in ourselves. When we invest in ourselves, at the end of the day, when we shut our eyes and we finish we're going to sleep, we're all we have. I mean, from the time we're born until the time we pass, one thing's incessant, a couple things, right? We're breathing, it flows. Our thoughts, they flow. The incessant chatter in our head flows like the breath in and out. And it's up to us to channel it and not take everything as truth, not to really accept everything as gospel, but be discerning. And I love what you said also about the motivation. Motivation gets us going, right? That's the spark that gets us going. But when, whether you're having a flush or a piece of crap hand, you're showing up because the discipline is what's going to carry us through those dark times and those other times. And you didn't build that tricep in one day or, 3 weeks, 6 months. And it's just not an instantaneous thing, but you got to have faith in the long view and to see the end, to see that end from the beginning. I'm sure that when you were just starting out, you said, I want to have a physique like this. And internally, you mentally envisioned it and and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you chiseled it and sculpted it regardless of how you felt on any particular day, right?
Well, what's crazy is, so I kind of grew up around bodybuilding, but I never really did it. It didn't really appeal to me. I thought it was great. It was fascinating. I mean, when I was younger in the early 90s, growing up around, pro bodybuilders, top amateur bodybuilders, they looked like X-Men to me. They were just phenomenal. And it wasn't like it was today, right? It was very niche, the gym. And you can recall, right? Like, it wasn't like everybody did fitness. It wasn't trendy. So you kind of had these people that were just doing it, and even the lifestyle people looked great back then. It was just a different time. But I had it kind of embedded in me, and then I was training for sports and always in the gym, and kind of had like a power building background where it was like athletic based but bodybuilding based, a little hybrid, so to speak. And actually, when I was 21, I went to the Arnold Classic. I was working for my buddy, and his wife, her uncle, ran the whole expo. He actually just passed a few years ago, but he's best friends with Arnold. Okay, so when we went, we had the VIP experience. I mean, when Arnold walked out on the carpet, he came up and shook our hands, which he doesn't really talk to anybody. We were backstage, like, meeting everybody. It was just amazing. Had commissioner passes, phenomenal. And the one thing I look back on, it's funny how you don't realize these things are talking to you, kind of like what you're asking is, I was watching the Arnold Classic finals, okay? And that was the year Branch Warren won it. Dennis Wolf was in it, Dexter Jackson. It was a beast of a show. And I'm watching these guys, and I'm like, man, this is phenomenal. And at that point, I've been reading muscle and fit strength magazines and flex magazines since I was 13, training since I was 12 or 13, dieting since I was 15 for sports, but always enamored by bodybuilding. And I'm watching this, and at the time I'm doing MMA and boxing. I'm getting ready for my first amateur fight. And I watched Branch Warren win, and I got this picture, and I wish I had it. I don't even, but he's holding the Arnold trophy over his head like this, and I snapped it perfect. And when I looked at it, this little voice in my head was like, "You're going to do that one day." And I was like, "Fuck you are. Like, you're 195 pounds, you have a good body, but there's nothing massive here. You're not, just a whole different training thing." And I never thought about it, right? But then it's funny because last year, I lost my pro card by 1 point. I had an unreal time over there. Linda Murray, Hall of Fame bodybuilder, one of the best females to do it, came and watched me personally. She saw me training and started talking me up and came and watched me after I got off stage. Was like, "Oh, you won." Like, dude, bodybuilding royalty, just giving you props. I mean, it doesn't get any more surreal than that. And, it was just crazy because 10 years of doing this, right? And in my 10th year, you hit a stride where it's like, man, I'm as good as I think I am, or or as I thought I could be. And I have so much more room to be even better. You know what I mean? So now it's like, it's kind of surreal, but it's really exciting, and it's kind of scary because it's like, where's the ceiling to this? There's no ceiling, and you're stacking up these wins. And it's just crazy because it's like 10 years of busting your ass. I started in men's physique at a buck 85, right? To then 6 years later being a heavyweight bodybuilder and, almost 50 pounds heavier, and then took 2.5 years off to now capping out heavyweights, having a pro physique. Like, it's been a trip, man. And I don't know if you asked me when I first started if I would be where I'm at, but I always wanted to be, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, like, I wanted to, and I was committed to it, and I didn't make excuses. I mean, dude, in the last 10 years, I've maybe celebrated my birthday a generous 4 out of the 6 years. I haven't gone to funerals. Like, dude, I've literally put it over everything, right? And if I was in prep, it didn't matter. I'm not celebrating my birthday. I'm not celebrating your birthday. I'm here to win, and that's the thing, right? Is you look at all these sacrifices, and then you look back and it's like, man, okay, it was worth it. And I'm still nowhere where I would like to be, but I'm closer. And it's just, again, man, it's just really, really crazy to think in 2011, watching Branch Warren hold that Arnold Classic trophy, and that little voice said that's going to be you one day. And then you fast forward to 2024, and it's like, man, you got an open bodybuilder physique, pro physique. And again, I know the game, so that doesn't mean I'm close to having a pro winning physique, but at least I'm now, in a caliber. Now I'm a white belt here, and I have to get my black belt, but it's just cool to reach that one peak, to now look up at another mountain and say, okay, man, hell, we got a ways to go, but I think I can do this. It's really, really cool. It's really surreal. It's very humbling. And, one thing for me is I never forget where I came from. I remember being that 165-pound kid that was training with these guys that were just monsters, repping 315 for 20. I'm feeling at 135. I'm saying I'm done. They're calling me a pussy, telling me I'm not done, forcing 10 more reps, just beating the living fuck out of me. And I would show up every time and I would just let them. I was just so pliable, right? But it instilled in me that, like, hey, you can do more than you thought you could, right? And intensity trumps everything. So again, if you show up with the right attitude, you're not saying, oh, I didn't sleep well, or oh, this. If you show up with that attitude of like, man, I'm here, and no matter what I touch, I'm gonna tear it up. It doesn't matter. And again, this goes beyond bodybuilding. If you have that attitude and you come in with a no surrender, no retreat, like I tell people all the time, I don't lose, I learn lessons. I don't know how to lose. You'll never beat me. You might have got the better of me, but you didn't beat me. I'll never be defeated. My attitude will let me be defeated. No way. You know what I mean? I just got lessons. I got data. Losses are great. That's where I have the most potentiation to grow and learn from. You know what I mean? So
Well, if you think about it, we never fail, right, until we quit. But if
yeah,
you kind of get feedback from failure, that tells you
100%.
what you need to do. So, like you said, you had these lessons learned. It wasn't a, was it discouraging? Is it disappointing? You think of all the effort, the time, the skipped occasions that you went through to obtain your goal, but you're not done yet. You still have a lot of headroom and bandwidth to go. I really find it intriguing with you in particular, but many of these guys, these bodybuilders in particular, guys that are students of the mind, right, and students of thought. Um, the bodybuilding, from a physical aspect of that, it requires such discipline and such fortitude that it really accentuates. The two go hand in glove, don't they?
100%, man. And I don't ever get discouraged. I get pissed. I fucking hate losing. So like, you'll never see me be like, oh no, man. Like, it pisses me off. I hold on to it until I can run it back and vindicate it. Like, that's just how it is. So like, I'm still pissed I lost my pro card by 1 point. It just feels like it happened yesterday. I'll hold on to that until I go win my pro card next year. That's just how I am. And again, there's just different strokes for different folks. But when you're highly competitive, losing doesn't deter you. It pisses you off. It makes you angry. You fucking hate losing. I tell people all the time, winning is inconsequential to me. I expect to win. I fucking hate losing though. I despise it. Like, winning, cool. I expected that. I should win. If I lose, fuck. Now I'm heated. Now I'm running through, what do I need to do for this to never happen again? You know what I mean? Like, and then the thought is, I'm gonna never lose again. Like, that's my attitude. That's the attitude I take, is like, man, I'm going to get X, Y, and Z better, or A, B, and C better, and I'm coming back and I'm dominating, and then I'm never losing again. You know what I mean? Like, that's the attitude every time.
I don't know, folks. If you don't know what motivates the mindset of Max Prime Stevens, then you must be in a coma, because this guy is on fire. We are talking once again with Max Prime Stevens. And you can find Max over on the Instagram platform. Please give him a follow and check him out. He posts frequently, and he's very candid and transparent. You're going to appreciate it. Switching gears a little bit, we've
Yep.
gone in and out a little bit. We were talking a little bit, doing some cardio the other day, and you had mentioned a book, Siddhartha. What
Oh,
other
yeah.
books? So what books do you? Are you still an avid reader? You sound well read, obviously.
I
What floats your boat right about now? What are you
So I
into?
recently picked it back up, and I'm reading before bed, at least 30 minutes before bed. I fell off of it, but now I was like, you know what, man? All this blue light exposure and electrical stimulus and yada, yada, yada. Like, I want to read again. So I read just kind of everything. It could be Siddhartha, kind of books about enlightenment or higher thought, or self help, to fiction, to whatever. I mean, right now I'm reading a book called The Nickel Boys, and it's pretty interesting because it's based off of this school. It was like kind of like a reformatory school where they would send kids who were too young to go to jail, and they would go there to kind of learn better behaviors. And this is back when, like, social rights was still going on. So the little bit of segregation and whatnot. And this
Nickel
really happened,
Boys?
man. It was a school in Tallahassee, the Nickel Boys. But it's interesting because it just shows a different time and how people treated certain people. But I just find it really interesting, even though it's fiction, it actually did happen. Kids were being killed and like buried on a unmarked gravesite on campus. It was really interesting. So I'm reading that right now. But dude, I have all these different books that I haven't quite read yet. One is I think it's The Way of the Superior Man, which I started reading, and that's pretty good. The title is pretty self-explanatory, and so there's some things down on there, and I'll probably reread like Siddhartha, The Alchemist. I started to read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, but I didn't quite finish it. One book that I was about to finish and it got ruined in the flood when we had Hurricane Ian was Atlas Shrugged. That was kind of like a flex because the thing is like a fucking dictionary and the font is like size 4 and it's like a 2,000 page book. And I
That's
was
a
like
good one.
3/4 of the way through it, man. Anne Rand is awesome.
And
But I
Anne
didn't
Rand
finish it.
She has the other book too, Max, The Fountainhead.
Yep.
You got to
Okay.
check that out.
I'll have to check it out.
It's just set in like I think the 40s with the bit.
Mhm.
It's just remarkable. And
Yep.
that is a Bible thick-wise.
I feel like
Atlas
that
Shrugged.
is like the ultimate flex. If anybody that reads, if you say you read Atlas Shrugged, you get.
I haven't
street cred.
finished it. I've
Dude,
read them.
I kind of started, and then I got on my shit, and I was reading it every night. I was hammering it out, dude. And then we had the flood, and I'm like, fuck. And now I'm gonna have to probably start it all over again because I have no clue where I'm at. And I'm like, man, it was just getting.
Who
Not
was
that it
the-
wasn't good, but
What was the? You see a bumper sticker once in a while that says, "Where's Thomas Galt?" or "Who is
Yeah,
Thomas
yeah.
Galt?" You know.
yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
it's such a great book. I think a lot of people, I think everyone should read it because it talks about capitalism. The concept is basically capitalism versus socialism or fascism, right?
That's really
pretty
it.
much what it is.
Yeah.
And then there's some philosophical, kind of underlines in there.
They
and
weave
it's
it in.
just, it's a great book. So yeah, that was one I have 3/4 of the way finished. I can't say I've done it yet, but like I said, man, I read all over the place. I want to start reading the Jack Reacher books because someone really close to me passed last year. A really good friend of mine passed last year unexpectedly, and those were his favorite books. So kind of like in honor of him and just to kind of like channel him a little bit, I'm probably going to read through those series because they are good books. So I have, like I said, I want to read the Dune series, the movies that came out. Those are supposed to be awesome. Some of the probably arguably the best sci-fi books ever written. So again, man, from like Siddhartha, Celestine Prophecy, Alchemist to all the other stuff we talked about. It just depends. I can kind of read everything. It depends on my mood and where my brain's at.
How about podcasts and audio? You ever do audiobooks or no?
I'm an analog guy in a digital world. So like once in a while I might catch a podcast and whatever, but I look at things a little differently because, in today's world, right, a lot of people have like YouTube vlogs, a day in the life and this and that, right? And I guess the way I look at things is like, again, these people aren't special. They're just doing the ordinary extra. The fuck are they really going to show me that's that much different? So I don't really keep up with the YouTube stuff and podcasts. I'm not saying there aren't good ones out there, but just the way my brain works, I'd rather read versus listen to someone talk. And I'm sure that's a little short-sighted, but it's just how it is for now. And not saying it can't change, right? But again, man, I don't really get too caught up in the digital world. I like holding on to that analog. I like a paperback book. I like writing with pen and paper. Something to be said about that. I feel like it helps us stay creative, and it keeps us a little more in tune with how things should be. I think too much technology can be hindering. So that's why I kind of try to not get too hooked on all those things. I'm not saying they're not great tools, not taken away from them. Again, I know there's some great podcasts out there, and I have gotten into a little podcast phase where I'll listen to one for a little bit, but it never fails, man. After a certain point, I'm just like, okay, I've had enough of it, just.
Well, speaking of analog in a digital world, do you like vinyl? Do you like albums over Spotify? And
So,
Apple
I mean, I remember back in the day when you had your CDs and you take the little case out and you put it in there.
They were a pain to open up the new CDs when they came in a plastic wrapper.
Yeah. But I remember when you'd have your book, you had the big sleeve and you'd have all your CDs with the cover, and I miss those days. I don't have them anymore. I have all my music on, iTunes. I don't do Spotify. I just need one platform, not 9. So I think that is cool. That's what I do like, technology working for us. Hey man, I can have all these things, thousands, tens of thousands of songs in different genres in this one little device. So that is cool. So I have converted to that. But other things, man, I keep it a little more analog.
Gotcha. And what kind of music are you into? I know you. I know.
Everything. Oh man, everything from, rock to rap to jazz to blues to, R&B to acoustic to the occasional gospel
Do
to
you play?
classical.
Are you a musician? Do you play anything or no?
No, maybe in a past life, but in this
I'll
life,
tell you,
no.
with your mindset and your dedication and devotion, is there an instrument that's out of is there anything that's a favorite of yours? Drums? You like
Well,
bass? You like guitar? What?
so I really do I like acoustic guitar a lot, and just guitar. So it can be the whole setup, the drums, the bass, the electric. I like how they all work in conjuncture. But one thing I've always wanted to do, and maybe I'll do after bodybuilding, and I need a new kind of hobby. I've always wanted to learn to play the piano. I think the piano is just such a cool instrument. It's so
Melodic.
versatile.
Yeah.
And like I said, man, anything that falls in the classical realm, I feel like that's kind of higher frequency music. When you're getting into symphonies and orchestras and everything working in conjuncture.
I would definitely encourage you to pursue that because, like I said, with your discipline and mindset and goal achieving and aspirations and stuff, I think that if you even carved out a little bit of time, you can buy a little keyboard for next to nothing, and just and really exploit it and try
Yeah.
to see where that would end up for you. I had a question; it was on the tip of my tongue. Damn it! That escapes me. Oh, frequency. We're going to wrap up. Time's coming close, right? And I appreciate your time, man. You're so gracious. I know you're such a busy individual, and to carve out this time to spend with me has just been a blessing and a treat for me. And I'm sure the audience is going to get a kick out of it. Frequency. I'm always like fascinated with vibration and frequency. Mm-hmm. I think that it's everything, right? It's resonation. When you take a tuning fork and you put it in one corner of a room, and 8 feet away, 20 feet away in the other corner of the room, if you strike that tuning fork with a mallet and then walk over to the other one and hasn't been struck and look at that tuning fork, it's vibrating in sympathetic resonance with this through the invisible ethers, like our thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you make of that, man? I think it's amazing.
Well, I mean, if you look at us, right, we're just particles of energy put together in this form. So,
quantum entanglement.
Yeah, right. So I think the way I always look at it is like we're just our finite version right now, right? But like there's this energy source inside of it, whatever you want to call it, your soul, energy, whatever, right? There's this unique energy source of your frequency that is gonna live way beyond this. Because if you look at thermodynamics, the first law of thermodynamics is energy isn't created or destroyed. So for all our science people out there, right? Not saying God, not saying, just saying on a very basic blanket statement, right? Energy isn't created or destroyed. We are energy. Therefore, we come from this infinite energy source. And again, if we're in a law of inverses, that's a law, right? If we're finite, there has to be something infinite. So we can just keep it as basic as that and not go down the rabbit hole of spirituality, whatever, right? Because again, at the end of the day, it's just a finite person trying to come to terms with something they can't grasp in this form. But anyways, right? So yeah, we're energy, and again, there is different frequencies, and it kind of, if you look at like that yoga approach, the chakras, right? Like we have different chakras, and when you work from the higher ones, you tend to be on the higher frequency. I think if you take a little play out of that book or principle, right, it goes back to our thoughts, right? What are we feeding ourselves? What are we watering within ourselves? What are we letting take root? Well, that's going to determine our frequency. And then it comes down to like our aura, right? Like certain people walk in the room and you just kind of get drawn to them. You look at, they carry themselves a certain way. There's something magnetic about them, right? And they're not even doing anything. They're not even doing anything to be like, they're more inconspicuous than like, oh, look at me, and it's like something that attracts you, right? And that's the frequency, man. And again, like you can meet a stranger, right? And you can just start talking to them and you just have this super deep conversation that's just not an everyday conversation. And again, they're on the frequency, right? They're on the level. They're on that level.
I think of you and I, that's how I view you in that regard. How can somebody work on their frequency to make them more magnetic and have a brighter aura or a more pronounced aura?
kind of
Is
like
there?
what we said before, right, man? Well, it all starts with you. What's your inner narrative, right? What's your inner dialogue like? What's your set of self-beliefs? What do you look, what is your worth to you? Again, know yourself, know your worth, right? Look in the mirror. And most people don't look in the mirror, okay? So, not saying you got to like what looking back at, but you're never going to get away from that if you don't look at it and embrace it, right? And I think that kind of goes back onto like, hey, if I look back on the things I've done or where I'm at today and what I've done leading up to here, and I look at it with shame instead of accountability, right? And an eagerness to learn from it, well, then I'm not going to level up. My frequency isn't going to raise. I'm always going to be on this low level energy. It's going to be kind of negative. It's going to be draining, and now you become an energetic vampire because you're not filling yourself up. You're not of source. You're not leading with love. You're not in alignment with divinity or God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, right? So you're all out of whack. And now you're going to everyone else trying to fucking drain their shit because you're a shipwreck. Like, plug the holes, fix the ship. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. Yeah, it's going to suck. Yeah, it's going to be messy. But guess what? What you get on the other side of that is going to be beautiful, and you're going to grow and you're going to expand. But again, nothing I could tell you because I can bring the horse to the water, right? But I can't drink. You can't make it drink. I'm going to get fucking kicked in the head and shot 20 yards away from the horse. I've learned to not do that. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is what it is. Take it or leave it. We're all on our own journey. And going back to success, right? Hey, man, how many, and Siddhartha reference, how many child people are there? Tons of them, right? You got people in their 40s and 50s acting like they're 16 or like the 9-year-old kid that never got their ice cream and got over it. Like, again, right? We have to look within ourselves. We have to be accountable. We have to acknowledge that. And guess what? There is no time like the present. That's the only time we have. Nothing else exists. Okay. So if I look at who I am today, and if I look at it with grace, and I look at it from a place of love, and I understand I have the choice to be better, and it's just in my daily actions and habits. Okay. And hey, if we want to get away from the labeling, right? I say all the time, hey, let's not call it good or bad. Let's just call it effective or ineffective. Are we being effective or ineffective? If we're ineffective, where can we create more efficiency? Okay, now I look at it like that. Hey, I can get my mind around that, right? It's not negative. I'm not condoning it. I'm not condemning it. I'm just being ineffective here. I'm lacking here. Okay, let me plug. You know what I mean? Now it's a little more easy to approach. It's a little more palatable. But again, it starts with that inner dialogue, man. We're going to be our harshest critic. So, like going back to the long drawn out answer, right? It just starts with that person. If you want to be on a higher frequency, you very well can. But what are you telling yourself? What are you filling your brain with? What thoughts are you accepting and what thoughts are you entertaining? Right? It all starts with that. And I think a big thing is having daily affirmations and daily prayer. And again, that doesn't mean you have to be a religious freak, or it doesn't mean anything. I don't like labels. I've never been a guy to fit in a box. I've always done my own thing and try to make it make sense and figure it out for myself and try to critically think. And that's the thing, man. There is something to be said about power of prayer and daily affirmations, right? Energy and attention. So if I wake up and I tell myself I'm present, right? I tell myself I'm love. I tell myself I'm in alignment with God's flow. I'm in accordance with God's favor. My blessings are supersized. Okay. I go through it, right? And I draw my attention to that. What do you think's going to happen? You know what I'm like? It's again, I'm manifesting, right? I'm bringing the attention there. Good follows good, right? And if I'm having a moment where I don't like the thoughts, I'm present. I have to bring myself to reality. This shit is not reality, right? Where I'm at is. So if it's thoughts that aren't even pertaining and it's because I have some trauma or a trigger or just my shadow self coming out to play, I have to realize, like, I have to have my emergency exits. This is not me. Doesn't serve me. This has nothing to do with what anybody else thinks of me or most people or the people that matter, right? And it has nothing to do with my reality in my day to day. So why am I accepting? I'm not accepting this. I hear it. I entertain it. Okay, cool. It's bullshit. On to the next thing, right? And I have to grab the wheel and steer the ship and bring the positivity in. Look, positivity is a choice. Love is a choice, right? And again, it's just, do you want to do it or not? If you're tired of your shit, then start doing different stuff. It's really not that hard. It just seems hard, right? But we're just conditioned and we're a byproduct of what we do or don't do. So if we want to change, it starts in the now, right? It starts with being positive. It starts with being non-negotiable on the things that are going to make us feel good and help us grow into what we want, whatever facet that is, and then being relentless about it. And again, it's not supposed to be this like the movies, right? Like, oh, we're gonna have the music in the background and I'm shooting rainbows and gold out of my ass every day. And like, it's not happening. Okay. And look, life is a series of struggles. That doesn't make it ugly. That doesn't make it nasty. That just means, hey, there's gonna be a bunch of things that happen to us that's gonna give us opportunities to grow if we are open to receiving the lessons.
I am so glad that I had the opportunity to speak with you today and have you share your wisdom and your knowledge, and just so refreshing. So for lack of to use a worn out term, I really resonate,
Yeah.
I really do.
No, I
really
don't think it's worn out at all, man. I think
no, the
that's
word,
biggest
just
thing.
the word resonate. I think it gets beat up a little bit, but
That's what we're lacking, right? How do we connect? How do we make sense? How do we speak universally to where we're not at odds with each other? We're just trying to understand the why, right? The context. That's important. And I think if we had that approach, we would realize like we're all really not that different, right? We might view this a little different or that a little different, but I don't have to hate. I don't have to judge you. There's a million ways to get there. That's just your path. Cool. Does it make sense to you? Cool. If it doesn't make sense, then why the fuck are you doing it? Do something different. You know what I mean? Like, it's really, if we keep it simple, it can be rather complex, but at the base of it all, it's pretty simple truths. Like, I find simplicity is probably the most profound thing. We just tend to overcomplicate it because of these highly obnoxious processors that want to make a bunch of nothings out of somethings, right? It's like if we just kind of keep it simple and have a deeper understanding and just go a little deeper beyond the blanket statements, the why, then I think, hey, we could all elevate. We could all be on that frequency. And again, it's like, I'm not special. You're not special. And that's not in a mean way. I'm just uniquely me and you're uniquely you. And I'm trying to grow and understand that in life, there's so much more than the material things. Those material things aren't going to define who I am. It's nice to have nice things. Sure, a great physique gives me a lot of respect up front, but how I talk to you and how I resonate with you is going to determine what you ultimately think of me, right? So
yeah, the
that's
great
that's
physique
kind
gets
of,
you in the great physique gets you in the door, but what's going on between your ears, how you
yeah, man.
articulate it, how you
It's like you could be an awesome, beautiful book cover with a shitty contents. You know what I
exactly.
mean? It's
There you
like,
go. There you go.
let's try to have it all, man. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think people are just scared to try, or they're scared to be a little different, and again, I think authenticity, man, is contagious. Dare to be you, dare to be bold. Don't try to be like everyone else. That shit's boring. It's played out. Like, just be you. Find the things that resonate with you. Don't be nasty. Don't do stupid shit. Don't be a bad person. It's all playground rules. We're living in the adult playground. You know what I mean? Like, and we're just finding our inner child.
Play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah, man, we're just getting in touch with our inner child on shit we innately knew as kids that, got jaded along the way or lost along the way because we had certain things imposed on us or whatever, right? And we're just trying to get back to source, man, because I think when we first come into this world, we are in line with source. I mean, I look at my son, right? 4 years old, the most pure, sweet thing I know. And it's like, man, this kid is just in tune. And like I just get lost in his world and it's just like it's so cathartic. But it's like I'm like, man, I know that life is gonna happen, right? And it's gonna be through school, it's gonna be through peers, it's gonna be just things happening, right? And the only thing I can hope for, as much as I would love to take it all and bear it for him, the only thing I can do is prepare him to handle it properly, right? And I think that's gonna be my greatest success is beyond anything I do is what kind of young man do I raise to take on the world?
Yeah.
So a little sidetrack there, but it all kind of connects. So
It all connects. All the dots are connected. Like Steve Jobs says, you can only see, the dots connected from the when you get there. You don't see it from the beginning. But yeah, I think you're going to leave you're in the process, Max, of leaving an outstanding, wonderful legacy. Love your philosophy. Love your mindset. Folks, we're going to wrap it up, man, because Max and I could talk forever, and I don't think I have enough gigabyte space on my computer handle it.
We're not going to do the 9-hour podcast.
That we're talking long form. We're going to do that. We're going to have you, Max. You got to promise me though, you're going to come back for another episode.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'd love to. This has been a pleasure. It's a treat for me. Again, these are conversations that I love to have. I never look for them. Again, kind of like the universe will provide. So anytime I can have one, I'm having it, man. Doesn't matter. I'll get lost in the sauce on this anytime. So you let me know. I'll make the time for sure.
It's no accident that we connected, my brother.
No thing is coincidence, man. You know that.
Absolutely, I do. Well, there you go, folks. For Max Prime Stevens, never got into learning how he got the moniker Prime. That's for next episode. But for Max, I am your host, Bobby Stein, thanking you for your eyeballs, thanking you for your ear holes, thanking you for your fertile mind on which these seeds have been sown. And I hope that they take root and produce a wonderful harvest for you guys. Listen to this, listen to it twice, 3 times, really get your arms around it. It's going to take that many opportunities and times to do so. At least that's me talking, because that's going to take me that amount of time. So for Max, I'm Bobby Stein. Thanks once again for listening. And please, folks, take good care. Max, thank you, my friend. We'll catch you on the other side.
Thank you. Always a pleasure, buddy. Have a good one.
You've been listening to another episode of the Motivated Mindset Podcast with your host, Bobby Stein. Thank you for tuning in.